This content talk is about focusing the project and getting questions. Before we get started, I just want to say at this point you have mapped out your teacher anticipatory web, which would have your main topic in the center and then at least 4 subcategories. You've also imagined all of the details that you could find on that topic. One thing that's very helpful is if you yourself don't know a lot about the topic is to do some informational reading. Now that we have the internet, that's really easy to accomplish by just simply Googling your topic. For example, recently a student was investigating rabbits. So I typed into the Google search all about rabbits, because that's essentially what we're mapping out on our teacher anticipatory web. What can we learn all about this topic? So with that, we were able to find 2 very reputable websites that had key information, unique, distinct features about rabbits that let us add to and enrich our possible directions. Once we have the possible directions, then we can help focus the project based on aspects that the children are really interested in, keeping in mind that we've got to provoke their thinking, we've got to continue to ask them questions and continue to record and get their questions, and their questions will certainly help guide the project. We now think that it is key to really making projects meaningful and getting project topics better defined when we help children explore and get those common experiences. With toddlers through kindergarten age children, there's a time frame about 2 weeks that we mess around with the topic. For older children who can read and research independently, it's often shorter. Webbing with the children shouldn't really occur until all the children have had a chance to have some experience with the topic. Now, if you've already webbed with the children, one thing to keep in mind is that you have a pre-test, right? You have a pre-assessment of what they know about the topic. I would go ahead after you do the messing around with the topic for a couple of weeks, that you do a second web. Each time you web children's knowledge, you're going to date it so that you have a visual representation of what the children are learning. When we help the children explore the topic, we focus the children on the topic through provocations, through different activities that you're going to plan. Essentially, I'm only asking that you turn in 3 activity plans. And let me explain that an activity plan is based off of Vygotsky's learning theory. It is different from a traditional lesson plan in that it doesn't follow the same traditional teaching method of I do, we do, and the you do gradual release method, where the teacher will tell the children or read something and the teacher will give the information, and then as a group you experience it together, and then you may give children some independent work to follow that. Instead, we build background knowledge through creating active investigative experiences. An activity plan is one that is written so that the children will be able to lead and explore, investigate, create. During this time, we are developing vocabulary, so you can have children investigate real props. They can help name the props or investigate what the names are, and from there you can create anchor charts. You can add to a small project word wall, however you organize your vocabulary already in your classroom. We can also determine children's interests based on these exploration periods, and we can really see if the topic is viable. Hands-on exploration of items that are real artifacts related to the topic is a really good way to build background knowledge and vocabulary. To connect this to theory, theoretically, we understand that children are building mental tools in their minds to help them be thinkers. Language is one of those first and foremost prominent mental tools that children need in order to learn. Children gain symbolic knowledge related to vocabulary that is spoken word through the use of props. And in particular, for the youngest of children, but really I always emphasize for all children, we want the real thing. We don't want the plastic overflow of Toys R Us types of models. Now, certainly we're going to have those kinds of things in our classrooms for pretend play, but what we really want to do is we want to expose the children to the real thing. In this project that you can see on the screen, young children were studying pine cones. And this is Pam Scranton's at UPC Discovery. And so the children were investigating and dissecting different types of pine cones. Focusing occurs early in the project process. It looks more theme-like because the teacher is determining much of what is happening as the teacher brings in artifacts, stories, props, provocations. In fact, the teacher is proficient at teaching with engaging themes, really often makes a quick transition into project work because they already know how to structure the learning. They already know how to integrate different curriculum areas. The importance here is that they understand that they then back off and observe to see what the children are going to do. They guide with questions, but they're not leading the children so much as stepping back, observing, and reflecting with questions to engage and follow the children's lead. So, ways to focus children. You might tell a personal story related to the topic. So, for instance, in the study of, or in the topic of rabbits that I was recently visiting with a teacher, I would tell a personal story of when I had a pet rabbit as a young girl, and I would talk about what I experienced. Here's an example of an ice cream topic. I was going to the store the other day and I needed to get some ice cream for our dessert for dinner. When I looked in the cold shelves where they keep the ice cream, I saw all the ice cream was gone. I asked the checkout person where the ice cream was. So this helps children start to recall experiences that they've had eating ice cream with their families, buying ice cream at the store. Who are the people at the store that might help us find the ice cream? Why is the ice cream kept in the cold shelves? What are those cold shelves called? Etc. He said he would get some more out of their big freezer. He said I could go with him to show him which kind I wanted. We went into a door and there was a freezer and it was a big room. Did you know there's a freezer at the grocery store as big as a room? So this would be a story that would prompt children to share if they've had this kind of information or to ask questions about it. Sometimes we focus children on the topic by reading books. Just remember, there are two types of children's books, children's categories, not specifically genres here, but I want to think about fictional or non-fictional. So informational texts, which are the non-fiction, they're best because in project work we are learning the science, the mathematical, the social studies, background, the real information. So if the children were studying butterflies or if they were studying caterpillars, if we're focusing on the topic, we're going to read a realistic information text from caterpillar to butterfly instead of the Very Hungry Caterpillar. Now, of course, you're going to read the Very Hungry Caterpillar at story time or in your reading workshop if you have specific literacy goals, but that is for a different purpose. If your purpose is to focus children, then you read books that are going to be realistic. Include books for adults and older children with photos and diagrams. This is really important. In fact, for younger children, when you have a really unique topic, for instance, one of the teachers working on project work this semester is doing locks and keys, and he noticed that there weren't as many books on locks and keys that are age appropriate for children. But one suggestion is to then use a locksmith's manual. So those types of manuals and technical books children will find really interesting. Field guides are excellent as well. Anything that has a lot of real pictures. Field site visits. Visiting a site just to look around and become acquainted with the topic is essential. This classroom was studying geese. So they went out, they actually have this pond on their property, and there's right in the middle a area where the geese come in and land and nest. So they just went out to have discussions and informal investigations before they went back and revisited this field site. You may view videos. Now, we prefer for young children, they have the real thing. Some of you are doing musical instruments. Some of you are doing other topics that you can find the real objects. That's what you want to do. In other cases, you might have to view some videos or real photographs. Google is our friend for those real photographs because you can Google in your topic, rabbits, and click on images, and that you will be able to print off lots of different kinds. Dog breeds, and that search phrase will bring up lots of real photographs for you to then just print, maybe laminate, maybe not. Sometimes I choose not to laminate everything because that becomes a visual barrier for some children, and I just have lots of copies so that children can write and create with them. Do first-time drawings. This is a great time to introduce observational sketches. Observational sketches are not memory drawings where children are sitting alone without anything to look at and examine, and they just draw. You all who've been teaching for a while will note that children will then have flowers and sunshine and clouds and all sorts of people on their drawings. When you want them to focus in, they are looking at the object and they're focusing on their observational skills as they make first-time drawings. Collect artifacts. Collect artifacts that children can manipulate, that children can think about labeling the parts of, looking and examining them deeply and closely. When we generate questions and form questions, it's best to sit with children in small groups. If we try to do this in large groups or a whole group, we are going to have a large majority of children miss out, as a small number of children may be the ones who we focus on because they might be the ones who can really form a question. We find that our youngest children like the stages of cognitive development. There is a natural progression of being able to form and ask a question. And so we're really going to scaffold that. We're going to focus in on what are the children's body movements, what are their eye gaze lead them to as they go to the artifact table, what artifacts are they constantly picking up as they are interacting with the processes and the project examples in the classroom. These are the things that we want to try to do. When you're looking at some readings to help you with this, creating provocations in Chapter 7 of the Burgundy text, that's a really great one to think about how to get those provocations going. And then for encouraging children to ask questions, you can look on pages 74 through 82, and then there's other text around that, but it's Chapter 5 in the Burgundy text. And just knowing that there is a growth of questioning. So children, as they grow, more capacity to develop deeper thinking, then their children's ability to ask questions also grows. In the early years with toddlers, we're naming it. When children are starting to make statements, those are those statement questions, fact questions, or the statement comment questions, we can rephrase those. Children might then, we can guide them towards those inquiry questions. So I really encourage you to look at pages 74, 75, 76, and 77 in the Burgundy text just to really hone your skills on what all of this entails. We want questions to focus the investigation. So that means we have to determine, are they fact questions? You know, can these just be answered through children's independent investigations? Usually not. Like, how many horses do you have on your farm? That's not really an investigation question. It could be one that children feel comfortable asking at a field site visit, but we want to know more. You know, we want to know, how do you take care of the horses? Who takes care of the horses? What do horses eat? So as we have conversations with children about the topic, they will make comments and we can say, oh, you noticed the horse is eating hay. So you're wondering, what does a horse eat? What does a horse need to stay healthy? With older children, the questions will come naturally. And you can record these as a list. And then what some teachers who've been doing project work for a long time do is they'll take those questions and they'll match them to their teacher anticipatory web. And they'll see, did I anticipate all the directions that my children's questions have asked? To get questions from younger children, you're going to observe them, especially their interactions with each other, their play. For younger toddlers who may not yet be in parallel play with peers or associative play, you may have to really hone in on them when they're in parallel play. What words are they saying when they interact with the artifacts? And then try to frame and anticipate, what might the children's thoughts be? And then you model that. Oh, you would like to know, how does that wheel move? You would like to know, how did you make that wheel go fast? You would like to know, how do you make the wheel go slow? And these are important wonderings that we do with young children. So you model that wondering. I'm wondering about the horse's tail. This horse's tail is very long and bushy. What do you think? So we can also say, I wonder who might work with horses. I wonder who rides horses. I wonder who cares for horses. I wonder who buys horses. I wonder how horses take care of their babies. I wonder where horses live. I wonder when horses need to go to the doctor. Provoke questions. What do you suppose this is for? So you're bringing out the props. You're going to introduce your artifacts. I wonder what we do with this. And we got to hold back. We're not going to give the answers because we might know the answers. Actually, sometimes we may not know the answer because when I looked up information on rabbits, I didn't remember that their cages are called hatches. And so if I were to bring out a cage and erroneously give information just because I think I know it, I might not be allowing the most learning to happen. So when we say, what do you suppose this is for? Children have the opportunity to brainstorm, which is so important because then they can start creating inferences about what they know about something like this. And then as they're taking in new information, that new information, those new experiences changes or adds to or expands what they knew already, and then they're able to do something with it. So that's why it's so important to provoke with these questions and then model. Document, document, document. Document, document, document. Always documenting throughout project work. Document the children's thoughts, their dialogue. What are they saying? Document their ideas through webs. That helps you see their connections and their thinking. Words are their learning. Play is their learning. For young children, actions are their learning. It's also what their current understandings are. And don't forget that you have to collect their work so you can document what they are doing as you're collecting this information.